on, Pippa. Good afternoon, members, officers, and people viewing on live stream, and obviously because it's coming up to the Christmas break, I would say probably in tens of members of the public watching this live feed, looking at it, so it's really rather nice. So welcome everybody. I'm Joe Hales, chairman of the committee this afternoon, and for those who are joining remotely, all you dozens and dozens, if you can keep your cameras off and your microphone off until you need to come and speak or whatever, that'd be fabulous. So I'm just going to move on now to the agenda. So number one, apologies for absence. Aaron?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies for absence from Sunita Hansraj, with Councillor Richard Stobart attending as substitute, and we also have apologies from Councillor Bill Handley.
Thank you. Welcome, Richard. Thank you very much. That's really kind of you. Declarations of interest from members, anything on your agenda? Richard?
The proposal from the Farmland Museum I'm just referring to, I have a number of personal friends who are trustees and you might say leading volunteers with the Farmland Museum. So I'm kind of waiting your advice on what I should do here. I can step back from the discussion if you wish. There's no pecuniary interest.
No, it's fine, yeah. Okay, if you would kill your thing.
I would just ask, is this something that you have discussed with those individuals?
No, not at all. I'm aware of what's going on, but no detail of this application has been shared with me, nor have I made any input to it.
Okay, I mean, you know, in that circumstance, I think I'm very satisfied. I will mark it down as a non-pecuniary interest for you for this meeting, but you can certainly say for the discussion of the item. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just declare that I have spoken with Fen Drayton Village Hall and pointed them in the right direction, but haven't actually told them what to say, as it were. So I would say I had a non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you, and I have a doozy. So I've got a pecuniary interest. My wife runs the Melbourne Mobile Warden Scheme, so when we come to that agenda item, which is agenda item number 6 on the main agenda, I will have to leave the room, okay? And Sue will take over the chair. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okie doke. Right, so where are we? Minutes of the previous meeting. As always, I'll just go through. This is on page 3 of your agenda, so if you just sing out if you've got anything to say. Page 3 and page 4. No amendments, so can I take that as a genuine set? Thank you very much. And number 4, do we have any public questions?
No public questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And excuse me, community chest funding applications. I believe this is our colleague Jane from Communities. Over to you, Jane. Thanks.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, so the community chest, we've had 6 applications this month. 4 are for the community chest and total 8,000. That would leave us with a budget of £26,130.68 if all were to be successful. We also have an application for our biodiversity of £2,000, which would leave us with £5,908.68. And then we also have one for cost of living for £1,657.13, which would leave us in the budget £7,666.99. Sorry, that was on page 7, I meant to say. Okay, so...
Jane, before you just you go on with the actual applications, now that you've given those balances, obviously our budgets run until April. Could you give any advice for members who may be, or members of the public who may be looking to make applications into the new year, or between now and the next agenda, I take it it's a first come, first served, so to speak. So when we run out, sort of like a bog off.
Yeah, that is the information on our website as well. That, you know, just because you've made an application doesn't mean you would be funded. But the way the applications have been coming in, it does look like we should be just about okay. So we've got quite a few already. We've got 8 already for January. I can't see what it is. 8 already for January. And obviously we have another month remaining for applications for January. So we probably have about 14, 15 maybe for January. And then we've only got February. February was busy last year, this year. February was quite a busy month. But then February, March and April were really quiet. So we should be fine.
Thank you. So the advice is for the vast numbers of people watching this afternoon is get in quick. Make sure you've got your facts and your ducks in a row, forms filled out, applications submitted to the team. Take your chance. Thank you very much. Lovely. Over to you again.
Thank you. So on page 9, our first application is from the Farmland Museum. The Farmland Museum, it was founded by the Delanoy family in 1969 in the village of Haddenham. It then moved to Denby Abbey in Waterbeach in 1995, so it could expand and subsequently open to the public in 1997. The museum showcases artefacts and displays which tell the story of rural life in Cambridgeshire and the Fens. There's currently 3 members of staff and 35 regular volunteers and over 11,000 visitors per year. What they're asking for is they have an education block and the community activity for the Farmland Museum, which is a space where volunteers can meet. There's a classroom for children workshops, a workshop for artists and a resource for local businesses. Unfortunately, the guttering is really old. It's the original from when the building was first built. And so what they're asking for is new guttering as it's warped and leaking at every joint. And so they have applied for that. The full cost for that project is £2,760. And they've applied for £2,000 from the community chest. And the Waterbeach Parish Council have confirmed that they will cover the remaining cost. And also, we'd like to point out that the Farmland Museum was awarded £1,799.99 in September 23 for a service fridge for their cafe. And they've sent in an evaluation saying they were very pleased with the project, thanked us very much. And when they went to buy the fridge, it had actually gone down in price. So they returned the £288 to the South Cambridgeshire District Council. We've got support from Anna Bradnam. She says, I fully support this application for the community chest towards the cost of the guttering around the cart shed and the education block. I know how hard the staff and volunteers work to eke out all their resources and to make do and mend. The fact that they are seeking the council support indicates this is a genuine need. Funding would be used for this essential work to keep the current buildings in good repair. And then we also have support from Councillor Bear Park and Councillor Rippeth, who both support this application and back what Councillor Bradnam's already said. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Colleagues, anyone got anything to say? I think this is, it's quite unusual that we have anyone return funds they haven't spent, so that's a brownie point, if nothing else. This is a fabulous museum anyway. Yeah. Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure everyone's aware by now that Cambridgeshire is a water short area, and every little rain water that can be captured and recycled for horticultural, agricultural purposes is to be applauded, so I would support this application.
Councillor Stobart.
Chair, thank you. So, following on from Councillor Sandford's comment, I think all of projects like this are in a sense quite public. They're funded by the council and in fact are, you know, beneficial to the community, not just from the point of view of them happening, but how it's done. And, you know, does this represent some good community experience? So I'd hope that this is more of a comment, the Farmland Museum, you know, would, you know, share with others if needed, you know, what they've done and how they've done it. So others could do those projects more readily, perhaps.
Thank you very much.
I support it entirely. I think it's a lovely place.
In that case, I believe we have a unanimous decision, so thank you very much all. Jane?
Thank you. So our next application is on page 11 and it's from Fendrayton Village Hall. So the Fendrayton Village Hall was established in 2006. It's open to the general public who are required to pay a fee to either hire the main hall or the committee room to attend functions. Examples of the usage are clubs, weddings, exercise groups, children's play groups, and those hosting parties. The application has come in because the committee room decoration, the carpets and curtains are very old and in poor condition, and this deters people from wanting to use the facility. So the trustees would like to redecorate the room, as well as replacing the curtains and the flooring. And as you can see, there's a photograph there of the curtains that they currently have, an example photograph of the blinds that they're applying for. So the Village Hall has already received £6,000 of 106 money for the indoor community space towards improvements to the Village Hall. All other costs will be met by the Village Hall. So by installing the blinds with brush seals to the window frames and the door frames, a barrier will be created between the blind and the window frame, thereby blocking out light and reducing the heating costs from the room. We have support from Sue Ellington, who says, I'm happy to support Fendrayton Village Hall's application for curtains and to improve the insulation and appearance of the hall. I think I said they've applied for £2,000. Thank you.
Colleagues, I think this is pretty straightforward. Pete Sanford?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Definitely support in principle. A lot of our village halls are getting, say, old and in need of renovation. Just wondering why this one didn't, at least in part, apply for would it be zero carbon communities, as they're improving the heating retention of the hall, whether that would qualify for one of the green funds rather than community chests, but I'm not sure if officers can reply on that. But yeah, in principle, I'd support this.
Thank you. I believe that my colleague, Councillor Ensign, has been very active in offering the different websites and addresses for the team at the hall to access the various grants. So I imagine they must have known what they should or should not be applying for. So
Okay, that's fine if they were
yeah.
aware of everything's available and
there may be another application in the pipeline that may well be down the zero carbon line. So yeah, we'll leave that there. Shall we draw a line under it? But yeah, okay.
If I can just add, they weren't able to apply for that because it's such a low value. They could, but it is because it's such a low value application.
I rest my case. Right, in that case, Sue, do you want to say anything?
I was just going to say it's like holding a parish council meeting in a barn at the moment. It's cold and very bland.
Councillor Stobart.
Chair, thank you. I suppose, you know, one glance, you know, this is a project which is the project proposal is very down to earth. It's about, you know, some limited aspects of how the hall works, but, and yes, I'm hoping also that, those who run the village hall will be looking further afield. I think there's the combined authorities, well, it's coming through South Cambs, the Zero Villages grant. Anyway, that's not what we're about here. I think the feel of the village hall, as Councillor Ellington has just suggested, is of great importance. How comfortable it is reflects a lot on the quality of the meetings and probably the outcomes as well. Makes it attractive for children's parties and stuff. That keeps the income coming in. So yeah, I'm all for keeping things spick and span, and I would support this.
Thank you very much. Then I'll take that as a unanimous again. Thank you very much. Jane?
Thank you. So now on to page 12, and this is an application from Gransden Bowls and Croquet Club, which is based in Little Gransden. So the Gransden Bowls and Croquet Club is a family-friendly sports and social club founded in 1960. The club provides social and fun activities as well as competitive bowls and croquet activities. The aim of the group is to welcome people of all ages, abilities and backgrounds, to promote well-being and to help tackle social isolation and loneliness. Also to provide a lively, sociable and friendly environment for all the members and to encourage outdoor exercise to support physical and mental health. There are currently 75 members and the yearly fees are £75 for bowls and £40 single, or £60 for a family for the croquet sessions. Although the green and the clubhouse are situated in Gransden, within the district of Huntingdonshire, more than a third of the members hail from South Cambridgeshire villages such as Little Gransden, Caxton, Bourne, Cambourne, Eltersley and Gamlingay. All of the members are encouraged to volunteer their time to help upkeep and maintain the facility. The club recently introduced the croquet to expand membership and to help sustain it in the future. With rising costs and heavy reliance on volunteers to maintain the green, croquet has significantly boosted the funds. Regular social and fundraising events also take place including during the winter months. So the club would like to purchase a new specialised petrol mower with a ride-on facility plus some croquet mallets. The current mower is very old, heavy to push and is requiring more and more expensive maintenance. Some of the older members of the club are struggling to use the existing mower, and so the ride-on option would mean that they can all continue to mow and maintain the grain. They have not yet secured any other funding, but have submitted a grant to Huntingdonshire District Council's Community Chest for £2,500. They did look into a greener option, but also, although the mower is going to be petrol driven, it's refurbished and a used frame seat and rear roller. And the mallets that they wish to buy are made of wood and can be repaired. This application is supported by Toomey Hawkins, who says, "The project has my support as it helps residents in Little Gransden, the smallest village in my Caldecott ward, who have very limited amenities for leisure activities. The cost of the total project is £4,064 and they have applied for £2,000. Thank you."
Thanks, Jane. As with all things which are 64 years old, as 1960 was a very good year for some people in the world. Yeah, I think this is lovely. And also the fact they're making an application to Huntingdonshire District Council, so perhaps we could let them know how well or not exactly what goes today for them, so they can match fund and what have you. Colleagues, any comments? Councillor Sanford?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. The application says they're based in Huntingdonshire, but Toomey Hawkins says it's in her ward. If it's South Cambridgeshire, fine, I'd support this, but how will we set for, are we entitled to award grants to an organisation outside our district?
If I can just add, I believe Little Gransden is in South Cambs, whereas Great Gransden isn't, but they're saying that they have 90% kind of like of their members are within the South Cambridgeshire area.
Okay, so
Because
that's
it's just those two
it's
little villages that are right
it's
into
an edge
the...
case, definitely. Okay, thank you.
This has the definite feel of some of the other projects we've dealt with this year, where we've got some fairly big community groups, haven't we? Dish, I think, is some of them. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, having
Citizens
driven through
advice.
Gransden a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
you can't really tell where
No.
great ends and little start. So it's essentially one village.
It's a blend, isn't it? This
So,
village,
yeah.
so it's lovely.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Stoneman.
Chair, thank you. So I'd just focus briefly on the petrol mower versus the alternative, which, you know, it would be nice if we could have, or the group could own a rechargeable mower with, you know, the supporting infrastructure. But as they set it out, the costs associated would be prohibitive and way beyond the scope of this grant scheme. So I think we have to acknowledge this and you know, recognise that this is going to be a refurbished unit, and bearing in mind that this is occasional use, it's not a vehicle that is commuting or a commercial vehicle that's in use daily, and so the carbon impact is somewhat limited. But I wonder if in the longer term we might consider, you know, on a separate occasion, a grant scheme that would include the ambitions of those who did want to upgrade and could maybe get some match funding, but to recognise the fact that these issues are going on the ground, as it were, and there are those with, you know, strong sustainability ambitions. But, you know, this group has clearly thought it through, and I think their case is reasonable.
Thank you, Richard. So, okay, in that case, I agree with you actually, and perhaps this is something officers might make the opportunity to do. Is that, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're unanimous in approval. So that's the first thing. But perhaps when the note goes back, say that when this mower does come to the end of its life, I think the zero carbon would be, if I'm correct, I'm looking at you, Emma, it isn't it? Because these do cost quite a lot more than petrol mowers, the electric ones. But it might be somewhere their next port of call to come into the more eco range rather than anything else. So I think that satisfies us there, does it not? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a yes from us, Jane. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Our next application is on page 19, and it's our cost of living application from the Liberation Cycle. So Liberation Cycle was set up in March 24. It's a charitable incorporated organisation that aims to provide relief to those in need by reason of financial hardship or ill health in Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire for the benefit of providing free reconditioned bikes and bike servicing. The charity is currently based in Steeple Morden Village Hall, which is owned by the Parish Council. Majority of the beneficiaries are from South Cambridgeshire, totalling around 90%, though not exclusively, as the servicing area extends to Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire. Potential volunteers who will engage with the project will all be from South Cambridgeshire. They receive donation bikes from St Neots and Milton and Cambridgeshire Waste Services. So the hope is that 10 volunteers will attend each workshop. There will be 4 workshops per week. 4 workshops per week for 48 weeks. Of the 4 workshops, 2 will be with the regeneration cycle workshops and at a fixed location. Another one will go on tour, such as schools and other clubs, and 2 will be labour swap cycle workshops, and 1 will be pitched midweek for older community members, people who are retired or in between work that still want to do something meaningful. And then, as you can see here, there's a list then of like all of the, like their target audience and how they plan to do their communications, etc. Okay, so this has the support of Councillor Heather Williams, and the total cost of the project is £6,628.52, and they have applied for £1,657 and 13 pence. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Colleagues? Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Chair. The application says 15 million bikes are discarded every year, which is an eye-catching figure. I assume it's nationally rather than just in South Cambs, but even if a small percentage of those can be renovated and put back into use, it's going to be very advantageous. So yes, this seems like an excellent project to support.
Thank you. I believe there was a song by Nina Cherry with something to do with bicycles. Councillor Stowmark.
Chair, thank you. I think it's an excellent project. So it has, it took some getting your head around because there's, well, as it were, such a lot of moving parts. So there are at least 2 organisations, different venues, different outlets, different communications channels. But overall, it seems to be very encouraging to people, you know, dusting their bikes off, getting them working, understanding how they work. And a key thing, I think, is, all the implications are there, that people get an impression of what it takes to keep a safe bike and an available bike. And I think these are crucial, you know, for their general use. Well, one other thing that in use of bikes that's sometimes overlooked is the security question. And just if through this process, bike users could get a little bit more astute about how to make bikes secure, that would be to the good. I hope they're affiliated in some way with you know, a campaigning organisation like CamCycle. That would be helpful. I think it's very unlikely they're not. But overall, yeah, I think this is an excellent scheme. Now, it would be with something as different, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but as different as this, it would be helpful to get some feedback in due course as to how they're getting on. I don't know whether we do this as a matter of policy with the grants, but you know, how did it go over the year? And you know, perhaps there's a case for them coming back in 12 months' time to seek some more support.
It is very much part of the process. I think the office as well, Jane.
Yeah, once the project's 6 months after the project's finished, we do ask as part of the terms and conditions for an evaluation. And what Emma and I have been discussing is moving forward into the next year, we'll bring parts of those evaluations to the meeting so everybody gets to hear them and you can hear some of the outcomes. They're usually really good, really positive, and that's also when we then pick up any underspends, overspends, that sort of thing, and we'll get money returned. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Anderson.
My maths is not particularly good just at this moment, but somehow I reckon that means that somebody has to administer all these workshops, and that is going to be quite a time-consuming occupation, because if I've got my maths right, we're talking about nearly 2,000 people attending workshops, and to organise 4 workshops a week with 10 people on each is going to take a lot of administration and support and help, I would have thought. And that's my only concern about this, that they may be setting their goals slightly too high for the amount of, they may have people lined up to help them and support them and to do all that, but it's a lot of naming and getting people to turn up at the right time, the right place, and with the right sort of interest and approach. Thank you.
I can see Jane's finger hovering over the microphone button.
Yeah, so I have spoken to this applicant who is very ambitious and very keen to get this going. And he's started up this, if you were to look on his website gives a lot more information, obviously, than what we have perhaps in the application. But the website's very good. And the reason he set up this, this charity is after the death of his wife. And his wife used to encourage him to go out on his bike and, you know, because it was good for his mental health, and he'd come back and then he'd be in a good place to help her. So it's very much like some of the other charities that we've helped that have come from a dark place to make something better, not just for themselves, but for the community and other people. Thank you.
I'm very happy with that.
Estimates actually include 192 facilitating hours dedicated to projects, which I assume seems on the low side, but at least goes some ways towards what you refer to.
I think what Jane just said was
Yeah.
immensely convincing and nice. It was really nice. So we could offer our best to this particular applicant. I think I'm looking around the room and thinking this is a no-brainer, and that's a yes from us. John, did you want to say something? Sorry.
No, I'm quite in agreement with what everyone said. I think it's a very worthwhile thing, and yeah, I would certainly support it.
Thank you. Okay, in that case, that's a yes from us, Jane. Jane, before we go on to the biodiversity, might I go back to page 15? I think we may have missed the Cottenham Village College. So I think I've had a discussion this morning with your good selves and the lead member for finance, and we think that this application is just a little bit away from its desired target for funding. And we're not saying no, and it's certainly not saying it can't come back to this committee, but I think it might be that we reject, so to speak, at the moment and ask them to come back again in the new year. I would probably think that given the amount of monies they have to yet raise, unless they have a benefactor this side of the new financial year, i.e. April, that probably come back around about April. And I think that would be fine by then for them as well. But that means that we can use that £2,000 to much better use for smaller applications where they need much less money to do what they've got to do, and we can benefit a wider audience. So if you could do that one there, and I hope the rest of the committee agrees with that decision. Okay, thank you. Over to you again, Jane, for the biodiversity.
Thanks, Jess. So page 22 is a biodiversity application from Foxton Parish Council. And so they have applied for a community chest to plant 6 large trees along the internal fence line of the new children's playground in the Foxton Recreation grounds. And as you can see, there's a photograph here of the playgrounds. They're hoping that the trees will help to shade the area, soundproof the area, and obviously improve the look of the area. They've spoken to an agriculturist consultant from Suffolk who has visited the site to provide a quote and has suggested which trees would be best for this area. The trees will be container-grown native trees supported with 3 stakes and Hessian ties, and there'll be irrigation pipes and deer protected. The parish council have confirmed that they will be making the purchase and owning the trees, and they will water them weekly until they are established, following professional tree care advice. We've spoken to John Cornell from South Cambridgeshire District Council, who is the Natural Environment Team Leader, and he had a look at this application, and he said the plan looks good, and it's been discussed with the principal landscape team. They've made some suggestions which we would be passing on to the parish council about maybe a different tree or, you know, like different areas. But other than that, they seemed quite happy with it. So they're wanting to plant 1 white beam and 5 West Himalayan birches. We also have support from Councillor Hobro, who says, I'm very happy to support the application to fund the tree planting. The total project is £5,500 and they have applied for £2,000. They also have funding from the Foxton Garden Association of £1,500, and the parish council will also contribute £2,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Colleagues, I think this is another jolly good application. And obviously with the comments from John Cornell as well, it's even better. Councillor Stober.
Chair, thank you. So just underlining this point about, what trees are good in this kind of environment. I am no expert, but I'm frequently, some of the other things I'm doing, seeing advice that don't think necessarily the traditional native English species, because they might not be tolerant of the low water conditions, the drought conditions we're likely to see. So, the fact that the applicant has sought arboricultural advice, and also we've had that confirmed from the planning service too. One kind of administrative point was that there is the 6 free trees scheme running at the moment. Does this overlap? Are the requirements, and I suspect there is, but it might be helpful to have it confirmed, that these are bigger trees than we would normally specify under the 6 free trees scheme. But yeah, could we just explore that for a moment?
So we did, funnily enough, just as we got this application, the 6 trees application went live again on our website, so people could apply for that. But these are large trees that they've applied for, so as they can be established and take off better. Whereas the 6 trees are what they call whips.
Yes.
So they would be very small and it would obviously take much, much longer to get to the stage that the trees that they're purchasing would get to.
Chair, so that was my understanding, and I think that's important for this project, where we're actually looking to have an immediate effect. Well, not quite an immediate effect, but a quick effect. Yeah, so supportive of that.
Councillor Sanford.
Thank you. So the 6 free trees is a catchy tagline, but it's slightly misleading. As officers say, you can get 6 teeny ones. You can also get 1 mature tree. And to Councillor Stobart's point, the ones that are offered are native species. I'm always a little bit iffy about introducing Himalayan plants, for example, in case they turn out to be intrusive in the future. But, on the whole, this project seems very worthwhile. And, if they want to pick up a large tree from the 6 free trees project, that would be very appropriate. Otherwise, go with the consultant's advice.
Thank you. I think what we're trying to do, get officers to try and dream up some new tags for grants. We've got the 6 free trees, which is a bit of a tongue twister. I'm sure there are other ones that we can get that none of us can say. So I'll leave that one with you for this coming year. As far as Himalayan birch, one of the cemeteries in Melbourne has got a whole line of them, and touch wood, they're as good as gold. So I think they seem to be able to adapt to the ground conditions, as Councillor Stobart said. So I'm looking around at my colleagues. I think we've all got a yes from us. There's another one there. Thank you, Jane. Well, I think, Jane, that's you done. Well, thank you very much indeed. Well, that just leaves me with one thing to say, is thank you to officers for all the work they put in there. Thank you for the people bringing those applications into us so that we can have this meeting. I'm now going to go to agenda item 6 and leave the room and hand over to my colleague who can then carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask for Emma to make a start on
Thank you,
the grant
Councillor.
advisory funding?
Okay, thank you. So on page 35, this report looks at the Mobile Warden Scheme core grant applications. These were between the 3rd and the 31st of October for funding allocations in the financial year 25-26. As you'll be aware, our mobile warden scheme review was approved by Cabinet back in September. This review included a 10-year tapered grant scheme to be reviewed every 3 years to enable schemes to become self-sustaining year on year and less reliant on external public sector funding. So for 25-26, the total funding available for schemes is £135,000, and of this, £108,000 has been allocated to the core funds. That is the focus of this paper. We felt that using client numbers was the most equitable way to allocate this funding. So the core grant application process was for schemes that we've previously funded, and funding allocations were made based on client numbers as at June 24. You'll see the amounts we have allocated per scheme in the tables in Appendix C on pages 63 to 65, and how this compares to what they received last year. It's roughly £30 a month being provided per client per calendar month through this fund, which is around a third of the total cost that is needed to fund each client in a scheme. You'll notice that a transition fund has also been provided to bridge the gap in funding, where the grant formula calculates a core grant award which is less than that received in 24-25. I just quickly want to note that Wadden, there's a scheme in Wadden which is part of the Melbourne and District Warden scheme. This hasn't been mentioned apart from on page 40 and 55. Sorry, not on page 40 and 55, but it's in Appendix C. So all the calculations are correct, it's just that it's been omitted from the main body of the report. And the recommendations are set out, obviously, at the bottom of this. I'll pass that over to you at this point. Thank you.
Sorry, forgot. We are being asked, I'm just going back to the beginning, to comment and recommend to look at the agree the mobile warden scheme grant funding allocations for 25-26 as set out in Appendix C, and agree that schemes provide yearly monitoring reports to the Council before the end of each financial year. I seem to have been embodied into this process for some months now, and so I will open it to everybody to have their say. Richard, do you want to make a start?
Chair, with pleasure. Like you, I've seen this in scrutiny, and now it's coming back as in a summary form. But I just wanted to mention a few things that might have come up in scrutiny, more as general comments. And I think the scheme as it's proposed has this very important aspect of maintaining locality. So the supplementary funding coming from South Cambs actually boosts what's already going on locally and builds on that culture. I will come back when I've finished speaking now with just a question about there's something called the networking group. Just hold that one for the moment. I think there's a very important aspect of mobile warden scheme and the intention to keep people connected with their local communities, and that's transport. And so what's coming up, or what's quite prominent in the grant scheme, is community transport. But some more consistent view of community transport, I think, is probably something we need to consider in a different, at a different time. But it bears on the kind of service delivery through mobile wardens. And perhaps one other comment before I go on to the question is the social value. Now, Rose Regeneration, when they produced their report, did actually use the social value, or ran through numbers through the social value engine, and was demonstrating the social value benefit of schemes. And I just wondered if we as the Grant Advisory Committee could see some of those numbers, because to see the social value as well as the, if you will, the money, would actually, I think, give us a slightly different dimension to consider. I think the social value benefits are significant, but to see them quantified, I think even better. So let me just ask the question. I may come back with one later. If I could just go on to page 39, paragraph 18, and there are 3 subparagraphs there. And the paragraph that begins, continuing to engage with a networking group already established during the Rose Regeneration Review. And that's to be facilitated by South Cambs in the first year. Now, as I understand, this is a group which is sharing good practice and acting as a channel of communication between the various mobile warden schemes. And there is a mention previously, I think in paragraph 12, a community of practice. So I'd just like to be sure we are using, I may have mixed 2 things up there, but there is a group which covers all of the schemes and where good practice is being shared. So I'd just like a comment on that, or a reassurance that it exists and how it's going to operate.
Yeah, thank you. So the workshops that took place before, we had a number of those which were facilitated by Rose Regeneration. But we will be continuing them, but we wanted to get the grant scheme out of the way, the core grant scheme. And then we thought, well, actually, we're quite close to Christmas. What we'll do is we'll start those in the new year. That's one of my jobs, amongst all the other things, like improving the toolkits and helping schemes with their business plans if they need that help. And there's a variety of support that we can offer. That's just one part of it. But the feedback from those workshops was very positive. And the schemes, they shared a lot of ideas and ways forward, and it was really welcomed, and it was a very positive sort of experience. So I haven't got a date in mind yet, but we will do a regular workshop for them. Probably here. It works quite well here.
And I just thought about, Richard was mentioning about the social return, financial. It's not, I haven't found it yet in this document, and I think we need to be saying to the public, for every £1 that's spent, I think it's £9. Yeah, £3. And you know how important that is, because I think we need to be persuading County Council that that's a significant part of their role, not ours.
So there's ongoing discussions with County Council and the ICS. They're aware of the Rose Regeneration work that's been done, obviously, which is in the report. This is discretionary funding for us. So they're more than aware, and they're quite keen to hear all the outcomes going forwards as well. So what we're going to be doing is schemes are going to continue to collect their data as they did before, so that we can build on what we've learned so far. And we're hoping that, obviously, if we meet back with them again at some point, we can update them, but they are, they are aware. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the raw figures across the district, it's quite a substantial percentage increase. And the press releases that go out need to wrap that very well with the social benefit of what we're doing, and also to make clear that, as I understand it, if South Cambs didn't continue to fund these schemes, most of them would fold. So we are the lifeline, basically. So, yeah.
Can I say something here, Sue?
Oh, sorry, John.
I mean, can I first of all take the opportunity to thank the officers and the Roads Corporation, but they've done a tremendous amount of work, and I think they've managed to, I think at one point, the mobile community schemes, I think the people involved, who are at the end of the day mainly volunteers, were getting a bit discouraged because it didn't seem that because of financial constraints that it looked like we couldn't continue with these schemes. However, I think the work that the officers have done and Rose have done is actually bringing people together, has shown people actually that these schemes can work, can eventually stand on their own 2 feet. And I think people really appreciate the support and advice that our officers have given them to enable them to look afresh at what's happening and to ensure that going forward, that this vital service, which keeps so many people out of care and hospital, is going forward. I mean, this is a fantastic scheme. I think it's unique to South Cambs. I do hope that the County Council does recognise how much money we are saving them by having these schemes in place where people are calling on elderly people, making sure that they're okay, doing the small tasks for them, shopping for them, or making sure they have to take their meds, and how these people are, as a result, are staying in their own homes and are not a burden on social services or the NHS. And I do hope that the County Council does recognise that and support us in what we're doing in South Cambs. And indeed, you know, I think this is a model that could be rolled out across the country and could ensure that we can ensure that people that you know are looked after in their own homes, and maybe reduce the cost of adult social care in the end, with fewer people having to go into care and into hospital. So yeah, it's a fantastic scheme, and I really thank the officers for all the hard work that they've done to bring us to this situation.
Thank you, John. I endorse everything you've said. I personally have a friend who relies entirely on the community warden scheme to keep her in her home, and it's brilliant service. Councillor Stobart.
Chair, Councillor John Williams just kind of underlined the uniqueness of this scheme, and there's a way, in which, well, there are several ways in which it's unique, but I think there's kind of an important lesson learned here, that modest amounts of funding aligned with, if you will, funding that's generated within the community can actually be applied with great effect. And so I think there's a general lesson learned, which is, funding can be applied if it's justified and it works alongside streams of funding that are already in place. It can be a very effective way of working. Just one or two comments, if it's okay, Chair. Top of page 39, it's important that schemes commit to try and maintain and increase client numbers in order to remain viable. This seems a really crucial point. And I wonder if, Chair, through you, the team, the officers, could actually have that as one of their areas of focus in the networking groups. In other words, what are the techniques, the marketing, the outreach, whatever, in order to maintain and increase, perhaps more to the point, to increase client numbers, because that is at the root of staying viable. And then just one final comment, and then I'll stop. The alignment, and I think that's touched on paragraph 26, the alignment with what the County Council county council objectives and integrated care system objectives can be met, and we've talked about some of the ways in which that's done by people being at home and helped through the mobile warden scheme. But transport that is, for example, oriented towards people getting to the doctor promptly, getting to the pharmacist promptly, these kind of things are more in the domain of, well, the county council, but also the combined authority. So looking beyond the immediate confines, if you will, of what we do here, and then demonstrating our success as a way of, in a sense, influencing some of these external factors which could actually be very beneficial to residents. So a transport scheme that, for example, on a certain day gets people to clinics, is going to be a very useful supplement to the efforts that are going in through the mobile warden scheme. So I hope that's not too much of a ramble, but I think this is an excellent scheme and well formulated and delivered. And yeah, as Councillor Williams said, we need to commend the officers.
Thank you. Are we all agreed then that we can agree that mobile warden scheme grant funding allocation for 25-26, and we can agree the schemes provide yearly monitoring reports to the council before the end of each financial year? Yep. Thank you very much, ladies. Lady, shall we let Jose back in? Unbar the door.
Thank you very much. I felt all lonely outside in the cold and the wind. It's dreadful. Right, okay. Agenda item number 7, which is the service report grant, 6-month progress report, 24-25. Is that going to be Emma? Over to you, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Q1 and Q2 update for the 3 organisations receiving more than £10,000 per annum through the service support grant, those being Home Start, Citizens Advice and Cambridge Council for Voluntary Service. Appendix A shows the reports for each organisation, and we are happy to report that all are on track to deliver the agreed outputs on time and to budget, achieving the objectives detailed within their individual grant agreements. Just a couple of things to mention. On page 80, we've been in contact with Citizens Advice to understand why there has been a drop in client numbers since last year. The initial assumption was that it was for multiple queries from the same client, so the top 2 figures. However, when we spoke to them, we were told that due to a member of staff leaving who calculated them last year, they've retired. They used a different methodology to calculate the clients receiving help multiple times. So if you imagine when you count it, they might have, we can't say for definite, but they might have counted the number of clients per month and then added it up, whereas the person that's now running the reports does it for the whole 6-month period. So you might have the same clients getting support over 6 months. So basically what they did was they ran the figures for last year, and those figures have come out really comparably to what we got this year. So in fact, the number of people helped has actually increased slightly from last year, and the same with I think the activities have increased as well. So it's just, I think it's just a bit of a administrative sort of calculation that's caused that discrepancy. But you know, obviously you can see from the report the good work that they are doing. I can obviously, if you need me to email that across to anybody, I can send you those new figures. In paragraph 13 on page 77, there's mention of the Cambridge Council for Voluntary Service proposed merger with the Hunts Forum. I can now update you. Members agreed to the merger at their AGM. That was the end of November, I believe. This means that, all being well, they'll merge on the 31st of March and become known as Support Cambridgeshire. They will, of course, let people know how best to contact them, but we'll be keeping the CCVS emails. So they'll still work as they transition into this new organisation. For the website, they hope that a new one might be ready for that launch date. But again, we'll keep the old sites in the interim. We've also, as officers, we've set ourselves a reminder to change all references to CCVS to Support Cambridgeshire on our website, and any grant agreements we're going to be having, obviously, coming forwards. So obviously they've got a lot of hard work that they've got to do now to create one organisation from two. But obviously we see this as a positive step going forwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. I've got some comments here, if I may. The CAB, different methodology, that was a surprise. We are a big funder of the Citizens Advice, so they're a very professional organisation, very professional, and it does surprise me that they've allowed this to slip through the crack, if you like. So could we just very politely remind them that could we have one methodology that all their staff use, whether they retire or not, right, is that they use the same process. It just causes them work and us heartache, because when you think that it halved, you think, oh my word, but it's now not. But yeah, the initial response would be, why? We've just put all this money and it hasn't worked, when in fact it had. So there's that. Just add on that note that Melbourne Hub's Citizens Advice team seem to be going from strength to strength. They keep asking for extra time and extra space, so they are going the extra mile. They've also introduced something, and forgive me, I can't remember what it's called, but we now have the CAB running a programme through, I think it's County Annas, I'm not sure, which is assisting people who've been in long-term sick to get back into work. It's a very niche programme, but it's working beautifully. So there's that. And last but not least is with the change to the CVRS, or CCVR, what do you call it? The VS, right? May I ask if it's not too much trouble for officers that we write out to all of our parishes and any groups that we've had in, just as a data trawl, basically, ping them an email and go, this is what it's now called. And obviously we're changing all our paperwork to reflect that anyway, but it just probably would work, because some of them are going to be, they might drop through the cracks again as well. Right, opening up to colleagues on this. Anyone got anything to ask, say? Okay, well, I can't think of anything other than what I just said there with regards to this. So, I mean, this is a recommendation to lead member for finance to make a decision further on. Hang on a minute, Councillor Stobart.
It's kind of a spur, isn't it, when the chair says something like that to think of something. But just following along from what you were saying, Jose, handling data is challenging, whatever, and in the voluntary sector, maybe the challenge is just as great as Emma was just pointing out. You get a retirement and somebody brings a new methodology in, but it does underline the fact that in critical areas such as accounting for the usage of a service, there needs to be, well, there's accountability, but there has to be procedures and methods defined. Now, of course, South Cambs is very quickly developing, new capabilities in data handling and management, and I wonder if, we could be communicating good practice with our partner organisations in this regard. So that might be very simple, just the way data gets handled, but the kind of multiple contacts, which actually might be part of one case, that kind of tracking strikes me as being quite important anyway. And there must be methodologies within the organisation which could be recommended to some of our partner volunteer organisations. So just a thought, you can be consistent, but it does require the organisations be connected and recommendations made in an orderly way.
Thank you, Councillor Stobart, that's lovely. Any other comments from my colleagues? No? Okay. Thank you for the report.
Chair, if I may, this report is more for noting, unless you
Yeah.
feel that there is particular action that the lead cabinet member for resources needs to take off the back of your discussions.
None other than's been said, that's more for officers really, I suppose. But as far as the...
Can I add, Joe,
Yeah,
that I will
carry on,
take,
John.
I can add, Joe, so I'll take back Richard's comments, and clearly we'll discuss them to see. I think there's a good point actually that when we expect those we give money to report back on how that money's spent, it would be useful to have some sort of common methodology of assessing similar things. So for example, take community transport, we look at the number of clients carried, but we don't look at, for example, mileage, or it could give us it could mean one person being carried 365 days a year, or 365 people being carried on one day. Do you see what I mean? So maybe it is something we should be looking at and making sure that the data that is presented to this committee has been checked and does fully describe the outcomes that we are achieving through the various organisations. So I think it's a good point, Richard, to make, and I'll take that back.
Thank you, John. See, it was worth him telling up today. It's good. Right, okay, thank you. So we've noted this then, John, and there's nothing derogatory coming from our end, so over to you. Thank you very much. Thank you to officers. I don't get a chance very often to say this, but thank you for everything you do. That's fab. Okie doke, and that does include dem services, of course. Right, on to agenda item number 8, which is to let everyone know, and the masses of people outside watching this on the live broadcast, being done by our Democratic Services team, that the next meeting will be in the new year, 2025, 30th of January, Thursday, 30th of January at 1 p.m. in this venue. So until we meet again, have a very happy Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.